The Wizard of Oz. In 1939, MGM released a technicolor gamble that would later become a cornerstone of American pop culture, The Wizard of Oz. While its dazzling visuals and musical score drew initial attention, it was the emotional payoff that truly stuck. Dorothy's tearful return to Kansas, whispering "There's no place like home," hit Depression-era audiences with a wave of cathartic joy. After a whirlwind of witches, flying monkeys, and talking scarecrows, the sight of Judy Garland embracing Aunt Em wasn't just a happy ending, it was a national exhale. Film historian John Frick has long pointed to Garland's performance as a conduit for the era's longing for stability and belonging. The line became more than dialogue. It echoed in living rooms across America. Rumors persist that parts of the final scene were left intentionally loose, allowing real tears to flow on camera. Some even claim the emotion on set was so raw the crew had to halt filming. Financially, the film barely broke even on its initial release, earning roughly $3 million on a budget of $2.8 million. But in 1956, when CBS began broadcasting the film annually, it found its true legacy. Families gathered around black and white TVs year after year, watching Dorothy click her heels and return home, not to spectacle but to something far more powerful, belonging. That's what moved audiences to tears of joy. Not the magic of Oz, but the magic of coming home. Miracle on 34th Street. In 1947, just 2 years after World War II, Miracle on 34th Street surprised audiences with one of old Hollywood's most heartwarming legal twists. Directed by George Seaton, the film's emotional climax arrived when a New York judge, under public and political pressure, declared that Kris Kringle, portrayed with endearing warmth by Edmund Gwenn, was, in the eyes of the law, Santa Claus. The ruling hinged on a clever legal maneuver. Thousands of letters addressed to Santa, delivered by the U.S. Postal Service directly to Kringle in the courtroom, were accepted as federal recognition. The result was applause, laughter, and tears of joy in theaters nationwide. Gwenn's performance earned him an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, and the film also won for Best Writing. Hollywood legend has it that young Natalie Wood, only 8 during filming, was so charmed by Gwenn's gentle presence that she believed he truly was Santa. Adding to the film's authenticity, scenes from the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade were shot live with hidden cameras, capturing genuine reactions from New Yorkers. Despite its puzzling summer release, the film became a box office hit and endures as a rare courtroom drama that leaves audiences not in sorrow but in tears of pure joyful wonder. Meet Me in St. Louis. When Meet Me in St. Louis premiered in November of 1944, it didn't just offer escapism, it gave war-weary audiences a reason to smile through tears. Set in a sun-drenched version of 1903 St. Louis, the film centered on the Smith family's everyday joys as they prepared for the World's Fair. But beneath the nostalgia and trolley bells, it delivered emotional gut punches that somehow brought viewers joy, not despair. The standout moment came when Judy Garland sang "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." Originally written with bleak, somber lyrics, the song was nearly cut until Garland reportedly pushed for a rewrite, fearing it would devastate her young co-star and the audience. The softened version turned into a quiet triumph of hope, prompting tears of joy in theaters filled with families longing for reunion. Some speculate that Garland's deepening off-screen romance with director Vincente Minnelli added a layer of sincerity to her performance. Others point to the film's final scene, where the family chooses togetherness over uprooting as the emotional crescendo. For those living through the uncertainty of World War II, the Smiths' decision to stay felt like a small but powerful victory. Critics called it sentimental, but audiences embraced it. Rumors even suggest that some soldiers requested screenings of the film overseas, drawn to its comforting sense of home. Over time, Meet Me in St. Louis became more than a musical, it became a cultural balm. White Christmas. White Christmas, released in 1954, struck a nerve with post-war audiences not just for its music, but for its emotional payoff. The scene where retired General Waverly is surprised by his former troops, who appear in uniform to honor him, was a deliberate gut punch of joy. Veterans in the audience, many only recently back from service, reportedly wept as the general stood at attention, overwhelmed. That moment, followed by Bing Crosby and Rosemary Clooney's rendition of White Christmas under falling snow, delivered a double dose of nostalgia and national pride. While the title song had already been a hit from Holiday Inn, its reprise here felt like a homecoming. The film was also a technical milestone, Paramount's first in VistaVision, giving its snowy Vermont set pieces a crisp, almost dreamlike quality. It earned over $12 million domestically, topping the box office for 1954. Some film historians speculate that the general storyline echoed real frustrations of aging military leaders sidelined after the war, adding unexpected depth. Whether coincidence or clever writing, the film gave a grieving nation something rare. A reason to cry, smile, and sing all at once. The Parent Trap. Released in June of 1961, The Parent Trap offered more than just a clever premise. It left audiences beaming through joyful tears. Hayley Mills dazzled in her dual role as estranged twins Susan and Sharon, while Disney's innovative split-screen effects added a touch of cinematic magic. The film's emotional peak arrived when Maureen O'Hara and Brian Keith, as the long-divorced parents, finally reconciled in a moment that felt like pure wish fulfillment. At a time when American families were grappling with changing roles and rising divorce rates, the on-screen reunion struck a deeply resonant chord. Critics of the era praised the film's blend of heart and humor, and its commercial success was undeniable. Some film historians suggest that Disney intentionally amplified the emotional payoff to soothe contemporary anxieties about family and change. Legends even hint that the chemistry between O'Hara and Keith was so convincing, crew members suspected a real-life spark, though nothing was ever confirmed. The enduring legacy of The Parent Trap lies not just in its remakes or nostalgic charm, but in how it transformed a playful setup into a rare old Hollywood moment of pure, joyful catharsis. Polyiana. Released in May of 1960, Disney's Polyiana delivered a rare cinematic experience, an emotional climax that left audiences crying tears of joy. 14-year-old Hayley Mills, cast personally by Walt Disney after her performance in Tiger Bay, brought the eternally optimistic orphan to life, using the glad game to transform an entire town's outlook. The film's most memorable moment arrives after Pollyanna suffers a spinal injury. Rather than descending into despair, the story crescendos with gratitude as the townspeople she inspired return to support her. Critics praised the scene's sincerity and emotional payoff, and Mills' natural charm earned her a coveted Juvenile Academy Award. Although the term Pollyanna had existed since Eleanor H. Porter's 1913 novel, the film cemented it in popular culture, prompting letters from teachers and clergy who lauded its message of kindness and resilience. Some film historians argue that Pollyanna marked a turning point in Disney's live-action strategy, demonstrating that heartfelt realism could rival fantasy in emotional impact. While its wholesomeness may seem quaint to modern viewers, the film's legacy endures. So much so that legends claim even Walt Disney shed a tear during a private screening. Whether fact or folklore, Pollyanna remains a testament to the cinematic power of optimism and the joy of uplifting storytelling. The Music Man. In 1962, as America balanced Kennedy-era optimism with Cold War unease, The Music Man arrived as a burst of unfiltered joy. Robert Preston, chosen over rumored contenders like Frank Sinatra and Cary Grant, was championed by director Morton DaCosta and composer Meredith Willson for his unmatched portrayal of Harold Hill, a con man who, through Preston's Broadway-honed charisma, became a character audiences could root for. Shirley Jones brought a quiet strength to Marion the Librarian, reflecting the town's gradual transformation from skepticism to hope. The film's finale, where the boys' band astonishes their parents with a triumphant performance, was meticulously choreographed over several days, yet felt spontaneous enough that some believe Preston's dance flourish was an inspired improvisation. 76 Trombones transcended its origins as a show tune, echoing through school gyms and small-town parades for decades. While critics sometimes dismissed the film as overly sentimental, audiences found it unforgettable, and its remastered release in 2022 reignited waves of nostalgia. Shirley Jones later described The Music Man as a timeless celebration of belief and community, an antidote to cynicism in a decade that desperately needed hope. The film's enduring legacy lies in its ability to turn skepticism into joy, making it a perennial favorite for generations seeking a reminder of the power of optimism. State Fair. In the closing months of World War II, American theaters lit up with a film that did something rare. It made audiences cry, not from heartache, but from happiness. Rodgers and Hammerstein's State Fair, released by 20th Century Fox on August 29, 1945, was their only musical written directly for the screen. Based on Phil Stong's novel, the story followed the Frake family on a trip to the Iowa State Fair, where dreams of blue ribbons and unexpected romance collided in a technicolor celebration of hope. What caught audiences off guard was the emotional payoff. A final scene where the family reunites, love stories bloom, and the Oscar-winning ballad "It Might As Well Be Spring" swells in the background. That moment reportedly drew applause in theaters and tears of joy. Jean Crane's performance, though vocally dubbed by Luann Hogan, struck a chord with returning soldiers and families alike. Rumor suggested that Fox deliberately timed the release to coincide with the nation's emotional exhaustion, offering a cinematic reset button. Dana Andrews was cast opposite Crane, and their on-screen chemistry became a talking point among critics. The film's vibrant set design created a nostalgic, pre-war Americana aesthetic. While remade in 1962, many argue the original captured something unique, a post-war moment when audiences needed joy, and got it. Easter Parade. When Fred Astaire returned to the screen in Easter Parade, released in 1948, it wasn't just a comeback, it was a cinematic triumph that turned a casting crisis into a celebration. Originally set to star Gene Kelly, the production scrambled after Kelly broke his ankle just weeks before filming. Astaire, who had announced his retirement after Blue Skies in 1946, was coaxed back into the spotlight. Some studio insiders reportedly feared he was past his prime. Instead, his pairing with Judy Garland, her only on-screen collaboration with Astaire, created a dynamic that critics still call one of the most joyful in classic Hollywood musicals. Their performance in the film's finale, set during a stylized Easter parade on Fifth Avenue, struck an emotional chord. Garland's soaring vocals in Easter Parade and Astaire's effortless footwork in Steppin' Out With My Baby weren't just technically dazzling, they radiated a kind of joy that felt personal. For post-war audiences still grappling with recent emotional weight, this Technicolor spectacle was a breath of fresh air. The film became one of MGM's biggest musical hits of the year. Garland, who had faced personal and health setbacks throughout the 40s, appeared revitalized. Her performance, full of warmth and resilience, visibly uplifted viewers. One moment in particular, when Garland and Astaire share a quiet, smiling glance after their final number, has been credited by fans as the kind of scene that brought tears of joy, not sorrow. Easter Parade didn't just entertain, it reminded audiences that joy, even in uncertain times, could still command the spotlight. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Released in 1954, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers transformed what could have been a problematic premise into pure cinematic joy. The MGM musical, starring Jane Powell and Howard Keel, followed seven frontier brothers who decide they need wives, and their unconventional courtship methods. While the plot raised eyebrows even then, the film's exuberant dance sequences and infectious energy won audiences over. The barn-raising scene, choreographed by Michael Kidd, became legendary for its athletic precision and competitive spirit. When the brothers finally win their brides through genuine affection rather than force, the resolution felt earned. The film's Technicolor palette and mountain vistas created a fairy tale atmosphere that softened its rougher edges. Powell's spirited performance as the civilizing influence anchored the story, while the brothers' transformation from crude bachelors to devoted husbands provided the emotional arc. The finale, featuring a mass wedding and newborn babies, delivered the kind of wholesome happiness that had audiences cheering. Despite initial concerns about its themes, the film became a box office success and earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Picture. Its blend of spectacular choreography and feel-good storytelling proved that even questionable premises could yield tears of joy when handled with the right touch. Gigi. In 1958, a lavish musical set in a fantasy version of Belle Époque Paris stunned audiences, not with tragedy but with joy. Gigi, directed by Vincente Minnelli, didn't just win Best Picture at the 31st Academy Awards. It became the first film to sweep all 9 categories it was nominated for. But the real emotional payoff came in the final moments, when Gigi, played by Leslie Caron, and Gaston, portrayed by Louis Jourdan, finally embrace their feelings after a film's worth of societal expectations and romantic hesitation. The ending wasn't grandiose. It was tender, sincere, and unexpectedly euphoric. Viewers reportedly departed theaters smiling through tears, moved by a resolution that felt earned, not forced. Karen's performance drew praise for its balance of innocence and wit. The New York Times called her radiant in a glowing review. Behind the scenes, Minnelli's version of Paris was built almost entirely on MGM's California backlot, with pastel-colored sets and ornate costumes creating a dreamlike atmosphere. The film's score featured the now iconic "Thank Heaven for Little Girls," a song that sparked debate in later decades but was originally embraced as part of the film's whimsical charm. Industry chatter suggested MGM was close to abandoning big-budget musicals after post-war flops. Yet Gigi reversed the trend, breathing new life into the genre and paving the way for later hits like My Fair Lady. In a decade marked by political tension, Gigi delivered something rare: pure cinematic joy. It's a Wonderful Life. Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life premiered in December of 1946 and initially struggled, overshadowed by post-war hits like The Best Years of Our Lives and barely recouping its $3.7 million budget. The film's true legacy began decades later, when it slipped into the public domain in the 1970s and became a holiday television staple. What was once considered a box office misfire transformed into a beloved seasonal ritual, with the final scene, George Bailey's friends rallying to save him, emerging as one of cinema's most uplifting moments. While early audiences appreciated its message, the emotional resonance of that finale grew over time, especially in a nation still healing from World War II, where the idea that a man's worth was measured in friendship rather than fortune struck a deep chord. James Stewart's portrayal of George Bailey was marked by a raw vulnerability, shaped in part by his own experience flying combat missions in Europe and struggling with post-war depression. His performance in the film's closing moments is often cited as one of his most powerful, with biographers and cast members recalling the genuine emotion on set. Donna Reed's tears in the final scene were reportedly real, yet not everyone embraced the film's message. In 1947, the FBI flagged it for allegedly promoting collectivist ideals and casting the wealthy elite in a negative light, with Mr. Potter seen as a symbol of unchecked capitalism. Despite such controversy, the film endured, and its final line, "No man is a failure who has friends," became more than a feel-good sentiment. It was a quiet declaration of hope and the enduring power of community, capable of moving a nation to tears for all the right reasons. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.